Welcome back to another episode of Boomer Bust, your home for NFL Draft Talk. I'm your host, Terry. Today, I'm doing another prospect versus prospect. Again, real quick, this is a head-to-head prospect. No specific round, no specific team. Just picking between the two. Say you got a need for both, and which one would you go with? So, today's head-to-head matchup is quarterback Josh Allen out of Wyoming versus offensive guard Quenton Nelson out of Notre Dame. Oh, I do think this is an interesting one. And on its face, most people would say, well, it's a quarterback versus a guard. Are you serious? But I think if you really dig into the considerations and the different factors for the two, that you would see this is kind of a little bit tougher. So number one, you got Quenton Nelson coming from one of the esteemed power schools. And not only that, but coming from a factory of offensive linemen recently that have been well groomed and prepared for the NFL game, versus a guy who's coming out of a very small non-Power 5 school, that has played some competition, but, still hasn't had that, big school experience on that big stage. So that's one thing you got going. But then we talk about the floor. I think if we dig into it, you'll say Josh Allen has a ceiling, and we'll get there. And we'll also talk about Nelson's ceiling, which is also pretty high. But the floor is where there's a difference, because while Nelson has a high ceiling, he has an extremely high floor as well. And the opposite can be said about Josh Allen, who doesn't have much of a floor and pretty much is all ceiling right now. So then we start off with the position value. We already know quarterback's most valuable position, one way or the other, no matter how you slice it. Offensive line, very important. More emphasis put on the tackles rather than the interior. However, there is value for people that can play multiple positions. Quenton Nelson is not a guy that I feel can play tackle. Right tackle in emergency maybe, but definitely not a guy that can live out on the edge. So you're already talking about, I think, a guy that's a right guard. Maybe you could play him at left guard if you're not planning on doing too much pulling and whatnot, but I think mostly just a guard. And so he does lack position versatility there. So clear cut, you want, but the quarterback is going to be your more valuable position. But then we talk about, again, that ceiling. Josh Allen, big guy, big quarterback, big arm, one of the biggest arms we've seen probably since Jamarcus Russell. So definite rare arm. Now, the difference is you talk about his ability to step in as the quarterback day one. That's very much in question, because while he does have that big arm and a bit of a gunslinger mentality, he does lack the intangibles that you want out of a quarterback, and that his overall maturation as a quarterback isn't quite there yet. But you talk about the upside. So usually you got a big guy with a big arm. That's intriguing. But some other factors that go into Josh Allen: very fast. I think he's a lot more faster than people give him credit for, and definitely is a lot quicker than people give him credit for when you're talking about short yardage games. But you also talk about how they let him run the ball for bigger runs as well. No Lamar Jackson, but still very capable scrambler. And for a guy that's 6'5", 230 plus, that's pretty impressive. Now, on top of that, you got a system that he played in that was a bit of pro style. So everybody's talking about the coach that left North Dakota State and went to Wyoming, who also coached Carson Wentz. And his ascension this year, and equating it to how Josh Allen could possibly ascend as well. And talking about how they both had those NFL qualities to their offense where they had to do certain things at the line and read certain things. And I think Josh Allen isn't proficient at it, but he's on his way. At least he's been exposed to it, is kind of the thought process. And so with that plus athleticism, as well as that ability to navigate an NFL offense, or at least, have some experience with it. A lot of people are talking about him potentially having the highest ceiling in this draft as far as the quarterbacks go. And also, I would say on top of that, looking at his improvements in the offseason so far, looking at him at the combine, watching him work through Senior Bowl, which was big that he got to go there, see him going through NFL coaching and seeing how his mechanics have been cleaned up so far is really encouraging. Now, flip over to Quenton Nelson, a guy that a lot of people are plugging in as not only a starter, not only a Pro Bowler, but an All-Pro. And it's possible. We saw Zach Martin step in and become that. So it's definitely possible for him to do that. And some people think he just has rare power, size, and nastiness at the position that you just don't see and we haven't seen in a long time. And with that combination, people believe that not only will he be an All-Pro, but a future Hall of Famer. Now, I'll never commit to anything beyond a starter for a draft prospect, but Nelson definitely does fit the bill of somebody that you think could possibly become that. And it still matters what system you go into and all that, but I think this is a guy that's going to bring an upgrade to the interior line right away. And so people talk about the extent of a guard, let's say Hall of Fame, which is the highest you can get. What does a Hall of Fame guard give you versus a quality starting quarterback? The position versatility or value comes into it once again. And so while Nelson does have that, again, I talked about his floor. He's coming in with the tools ready to make an immediate impact as a starter. And in the first round, you absolutely want to get people that can come in and start. With quarterbacks, it's a little different, but on the line, that's number one. You want this guy to come in and start and provide some stability to your O-line in the interior. And so how much do you value that versus a Josh Allen who seemingly will need some time to work? And while we know that's a cliche, not a cliche, it's kind of a trope at this point in the NFL. We're going to let him learn, and we know one game, half through a game, fans are going to cry, somebody's going to cry, start tweeting, and next thing you know, he's in. So while Josh Allen definitely most likely will be on the field the first season, it's going to take him time to become a good player. And so, do we got time to invest in that guy, or is that something I want to do versus a guard? Now, this kind of being, whatever, a random team, whoever, it does make it difficult because you don't know the exact situation, which could lean you one way or the other. But if I need a quarterback and I need a starter, I also need help on the O-line. I'm going to just sit here and take it from my perspective that I'm not necessarily banking on Josh Allen as a guy that can come in and start. He is a boomer bust prospect to me. I think he is all ceiling, so that's something you're projecting him to be. I don't think he comes in and gives you anything right away, whereas Nelson can come in and plug in and be there for a decade and play very well. So it becomes a very difficult choice. For me, I think at the end of the day, and again, we're not talking about a specific round or pick, so if it just came down, do you want Josh Allen, do you want Quenton Nelson? I think this is an extremely tough choice, and I am going to go, my lineman heart is swaying me one way, but I'm going to go Josh Allen by a thin margin, a very thin margin, and I think the biggest thing for me is what he's shown to improve in the offseason. Now, that is just something, you could clean that up for a combine, you could clean that up for a pro day. It does take more to make it muscle memory and to really correct those mechanics. So while I'm not banking on it, I am encouraged by his ability and capacity to learn within that short time. And so that gives me more courage in him. And of course, it's a quarterback. To have a high level quarterback with that type of arm, the rewards are a lot better if he works out. While Nelson might be safer, I think I got to take the gamble. But I would love to hear what everybody else has to say. Go to the comment section. Let me know Nelson versus Josh Allen, not your team, just straight head to head. Random team, random round. These are your two choices. Who you taking? Go to comment section. Let me know. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around, and thank you for listening.